Hello, this is my midweek video. I just wanted to give you a little preview of what I'm going to be talking about. I want to give you a status on my sweatshirts, aka upcycled sweatshirts, and also what I'm doing to make them a little bit different than what anybody else is doing. And then also stick around to the end for my sewing tip of the week. Thanks. Hello, my name is Doris, and I am Little Bird Products. Welcome back if you've been here before. And if you're new here, welcome. I would like to remind you, if you haven't subscribed, please do so now. You just have to have a membership to Google, a login to Google to be able to subscribe. It's free, and that way you get notified every time I post a new video. Thank you. Bye. I've been diving into making more sweatshirts, or sweatshirts as everybody else calls them, but I make them so sweet, so I call them sweatshirts. I did work on this one. It's almost finished. It just needs to have some lace put on the bottom of it. And it's kind of unusual because I made it a little different. And I'll talk about it a little more here as I show you around it. It's not finished yet, but it's going to get there. The other thing that I've been doing as I was working on that, I'm trying to find a way to make my sweatshirts that I make for fall, or any of these sweatshirts, when I turn them sweet, make them a little different than what I've seen almost everybody else doing. You know, a lot of people upgrade the sweatshirts. Some of them do it a little, some of them do it a lot. I really like what Julia does in Stitches by Julia. I'll put the link to her shop. I did do a collaboration with her earlier in the year, so if you look at my other videos, you'll see that if you look in the collaborations. She does a good job. She upcycles a lot of sweatshirts. I believe most of the time she starts out with a new shirt. I don't often start out with a new shirt. I usually start out with a couple of really good thrifted shirts. I do get some ideas from her. But in thinking through what I could do that's a little different from anybody else, I thought, well, gosh, you know, I have 2 embroidery machines. You know, why don't I do some things with embroidery? So I'm going to show you a couple of things that I am going to use to embroider. I haven't done any yet, but I'm in the middle of this process. I've got some leaves like this. I have a group of leaves in an embroidery image that I'm thinking I'm going to either embroider on a piece of material or sweatshirt and then applique it on something, or I might do it right directly on the back of a sweatshirt. We'll see. I'm right in the middle of testing out the image to see how it works. And then I have a pumpkin, which I really like because I'm thinking about doing mainly things that are themed for fall. I try not to do too many seasonal things because people pay quite a bit for my products, and I want them to be able to wear them all year long, weather permitting. So you can wear a shirt that has leaves on it in fall colors. Fall and winter are a lot of months. And pumpkins, I wear pumpkins year round. So I try not to make things that are just for 1 month or one particular occasion, but for a number of months. So with that in mind, I've been looking for some of those images that I can embroider like that. And one of the images, actually 2 of them, no, the pumpkin and one of the leaves, and I'll show you a picture of this denim shirt that they've done the reverse applique on with these leaves, and I like the way that looks. I don't know that I would put that many leaves on it or quite that way, but I want to figure out how to do that reverse embroidery because I like the way it looks. It makes it inset. I also like the way that you can just applique depending on the material you use, because I like that tactile feel of having a patch or something on the top. So there again, I'm trying to do something a little different from anybody else, whether it's with embroidery or whether it's with material. So I'm in the middle of that process. If you have any ideas or things to add to this or comments about that, would you wear one of these sweatshirts with a reverse applique of leaves or a pumpkin? Would you wear that just for a month, for a few months, or all year round? I really appreciate that feedback because that is what I'm trying to do. That's going to be pretty much my week working on those. And please watch till the end because I do have my sewing tip of the week in there. And let me know if you like the sewing tips. I've started a list of them so I make sure I don't repeat myself. But I often do repeat myself. But, you know, maybe you weren't watching the first time, or maybe you enjoyed it so much that you wanted to hear me talk about it again. So have a good week, and I'll let you know on Sunday. I'll show you how my work in progress is going with my sweatshirts. Have a great week. I wanted to show you briefly the sweatshirt that I've been working on today for the midweek. And I really like the colorfulness of this. This was the front of another sweatshirt, and it was just solid color on the back, and I'll show you what I'm doing with the sleeves in the back of that. But then I had this is not really a sweatshirt, it's a shirt. It's kind of stretchy, and I liked that lime color because it matched this kind of a ribbon effect that's down through the front of this other shirt. The colors matched. And then of course it was a little short on the sides because of the way that this front piece of the sweatshirt was made. So I had these kind of fall colors, and it goes with the colors of the front. That was from another, I think it was a shirt that I cut up for something else. But anyway, it's a piece of like t-shirting material. And I'm putting a little piece across the front because it ended up being a little low in the front. I'm going to finish that. And then I put a triangle of it here at the sides. And I'm going to leave that open, I think. Then, and I've got the rest of this pinned up, so I'll probably finish it today or tomorrow. I put black lace along the bottom just to lengthen this a slight bit. Isn't that beautiful? So it's going to have to go to somebody that loves the colorfulness of it, or it'll make its way into my closet and stay there. Anyway, I really, really love how that looks. But now I want to show you what I'm going to do with this. You know I don't like to get rid of anything. What I'm going to do with the rest of the sweatshirt that was like this. This, pardon the dizziness, is one of the sleeves. And I am embroidering these this leaf image that I have on the sleeves, and then I'm going to use this for an applique on another sweatshirt. And I have 2 more pieces here on my cutting table of that sweatshirt. So I'm going to do that. I'm probably going to do one of them with the pumpkin applique, and I'll show you in a minute here what that applique is going to look like. And that's another project that I'm working on. I'll show you a picture here. I'll put an insert in. I did download a couple of new embroidery images for this. And then one of the other images that I downloaded, here's the outline of the pumpkin, because I'm thinking about maybe doing that as a reverse applique. So I'll show you on Sunday. I'll go into a little more detail about how that works out with the verse applique on that. And then here's one of the leaves that I did. And what I did is I just stitched it out as a test stitch on this stabilizer because I'm going to use this as a pattern for some leaf applique. And I'm going to take some of my scraps and cut them out in this leaf shape, and then potentially just embroider on them a little bit, because it's pretty much just 1, 2, 3 separate stitches, an outline stitch, couple of outline stitches, and then the center branch stitch. And this stitch actually is kind of fuzzy, and that's one that if I do a reverse applique, that's what would stitch it completely on the sweatshirt. So that's going to be an experiment that I conduct this week. So we shall see where we're going. This is the color chart for that embroidery that's happening, and I'll put an image in here so you can see it. But I don't always hold true to the colors. You see it's supposed to be 11 different colors. Well, my embroidery machines are all 6 needles. And so what I try to do is combine some of these colors so that I'm only using 6 colors. That way I don't have to change the thread in between. So I write all over it, I print it out, and then I write what my colors are that I'm going to use. And then I can change the colors if I want it to be a little different. I think you'll notice here that it's kind of monochrome here, the colors that I chose. So when I do this the next time, I'm going to choose some brighter colors for it. Hello, this is my sewing tip of the week. You know, those of us who sew, we can never have too many tools. And of course, we all have our favorite tools. And these are some of my favorite tools. They're the tools I use to cut fabric. And I have all kinds of fabric, so I have all kinds of tools to cut them. These are my favorite tools, starting with my electric scissors. I have 3 pairs, can you believe, of electric scissors. Of course, you know, I have 2 pink pairs and an orange pair. Color's important. But I have 3 different places where I cut fabric, so I like to have them handy when I'm there. And hopefully, they're charged. And they have 2 different types of blades on them. One is for thicker, heavier fabric, and then one is for regular cotton. And I can't say that I switch the blades out. I always try to cut with whatever blade's in it. So that's me, and that's what I do. And I have a couple pairs of my favorite rotary cutters. And those of you who've used rotary cutters, you know how handy they are. But you know that the blade is always dull when you want to do it. And how you do a little happy dance when you've changed the blades. And I use expensive blades, titanium blades, and I even have a blade sharpener. But ask me if I know where it is and if I can use it. But I do like my rotary cutters when I'm doing a lot of cutting. But scissors are the handy dandy, and I have 2 pairs of of course everything's expensive nowadays, 2 pairs of black Guggenheim, I don't know what they are, it begins with a G. I have a smaller pair, which is regular size, and then I have a big kind of industrial pair. But I do have arthritis in my hands, so I use my rotary cutters and my electric scissors most often when I can. But when I'm going to do a quick job and I want a nice pair of scissors, I use those. And nobody uses them but me, and nobody uses them for anything except fabric. You do not cut patterns. You do not cut paper with my sewing scissors. And I have another couple of old pairs that I use to cut packaging material and that kind of stuff. And I'm not showing them here because they're just cheapos and I'm not proud of them. And then I have also my little snippy scissors. And I really like my little snippies. I have different sizes and different shapes. And I'll show you a little running film here, running through all the pictures of all of them. But I'll show you a couple of shots here of them. So you can never have too many tools. My tip on the scissors is, splurge. If you're sewing a lot, you need good tools. You need sharpened scissors. You need a rotary cutter. If you've never used a rotary cutter, oh my gosh. And a lot of times you can find them on sale. You can find them on Amazon. Get a package of blades. Don't be cheap. A blade itself costs less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. So, you deserve the best tools. And the little snippets, sometimes they give them away for pre-packaging them, different things. And I've been known to use my husband's little mustache scissors. And, they're nice to have, just to snip those little bits of thread. There's always a little piece of thread hanging off of something. And you want to have something handy. So I have them laying all over. So I have them one by each serger, one by each sewing machine, one by each embroidery machine. So I have multiple pairs of those. So splurge. Buy yourself a new pair of scissors. Put it on your Christmas gift list. They fit perfectly in Christmas stockings. So, put on your Christmas gift list some replacement blades for your rotary cutters. That way you always have some in your stash. Enjoy. Thank you. Bye. I am a firm believer that you can never have too many ways to cut your fabric. These are my main cutting tools. I have an electric cutter, and I have them in order of preference of use. And then I have 2 different rotary cutters. I have a smaller one, and I've had this for quite a while. I like it because it is smaller and it's easier to hold. This is a little larger. And then I have 2 pairs of these very expensive Ginger scissors. I have a smaller pair and then a larger pair. This is my absolute favorite. And then I have this pair of scissors. I like it because I can close up the blade, and they stay pretty sharp on me all the time, and I like that. And then, of course, nobody could live without a pair of pinking shears. You know, pinking shears are, if you don't have if you have cotton and you don't want it to fray, you can cut it with pinking shears. And then these are my little snips, and I have them here pretty much in order of preference of use. I like these little Fiskars. They work pretty good, and they're easy to open and shut. These are my absolute favorite. I have a bunch of these hanging around. I have, these I think are actually mustache scissors, but I use those all the time just to snip the threads for my embroidery machine, my serger, and other things. They're just nice. I have especially these all over the place, and I have a pair of these by each embroidery machine. Yep, you can never have too many ways to cut fabric.